everyone. Don't cry for me. I'm in San Diego, not Florida, where I'm at the Qualys QSC event. We'll be live from the gang at QSC today. But we're also going to talk about how all of these hurricanes are affecting IT disaster recovery, and AI is winning Nobel Prizes. All that and more. You're watching Techstrong, gang. Hey everyone, good morning. It's Alan Schimmel from sunny San Diego, not war or storm soon to be ravaged Florida. I'm here for the Qualys QSC event, and in our C block today, I'll actually be down at our Techstrong TV booth at the QSC event, interviewing some folks from Qualys about what they're calling a ROC, a Risk Operations Center. And we'll have that, but we have a lot more of our usual Techstrong gang coverage today. Let me introduce you to our gang members present for today. First of all, I'm on the West Coast with them, but there can be only one SAR of Silicon Valley. It's our very own John Swartz. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, Alan, welcome to California. Hope state is treating you well. My son, by the way, lives in San Diego, so welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's nice in San Diego. It's nice here. So, John, welcome. Thanks for being on today's show. Let me introduce the rest of our gang members. Our next gang member is from Austin, and she's in her backup map, as it turns out today. She's on her backup map. It's our Anne Alhoa Ward. Did I get that one right? Am I getting close?
You're getting closer. And Ahola Ward, yes.
Every day I turn that dial a little more in. I'm getting there.
It's fine. I appreciate the effort. It's Ahola. It's my father was from Finland.
Yep. And
it's I don't even know how to pronounce it correctly. I've been corrected 100 times saying it by my relatives.
It's okay. It's all good. But more importantly, it's great to have you here, Ann, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And then joining us from, old hurricane news location up in North Carolina, it's our own Mark Inkle, resident AI guru and cloud expert, marketing, and so many other things. Hey, Mark, I'm glad to see you in the pink and well. I hope everything is almost back to normal up in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, and in the center of the state, we're good. But I'll tell you, Western North Carolina, there are whole towns that are gone. So, but we're doing good here in outside of Raleigh.
Good. Good to have you on, and thanks for being here. So, guys, as I mentioned up at the top of the show, our first block today deals with climate change, right? And how these intense storms, and this one coming right now, this Milton is looking like it's going to be a monster. But how these intense storms are kind of changing the equation for disaster recovery, which, let's face it, was a bit of a disaster. It's been, there hasn't, you never know your disaster recovery doesn't work until you go to recover from a disaster. So you haven't been affected too much by recent climate change disasters, but what do you think about, how is this affecting disaster recovery?
I think that it's, we're seeing so many disasters, natural and man-made, that have made it imperative for organizations to have more robust data protection strategies. I think that traditional methods like scheduled backups, disaster recovery plans really aren't sufficient as they once were to safeguard our data in the face of escalating threats. So I think that if we are not protecting data as organizations, then that's going to lead to severe consequences and financial losses. So I think that this is making everybody sort of rethink those plans.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, what about you?
Yeah, it's interesting because, nothing is ever really new. And I grew up in the shadow of 3 Mile Island. And back in those days when we had the meltdown or the leak, everybody called it a meltdown. But my former boss worked at for Ross Perot at EDS, and they flew in helicopters and pulled drives right out of the data center and flew away with them. I mean, I think that the problem is just getting exacerbated by climate change and just different things that are going on. I think there's some really upside to the technology we have for earlier response in a lot of ways. Google released GraphCast, I think it was called last year, and they have better forecasts. But the thing I think we really need to do is leverage this technology and this data so that we can, figure out cause and effect and, do the things that prevent us from having, Miltons and Helenes and all these other things. I was really, living here in North Carolina, I have not seen that kind of carnage in the U.S. It's probably Katrina. I mean, it's towns wiped out, but I'm very hopeful because I think it's a matter of us taking the data we have, taking the technology we have, not just having better early warning, but start figuring out, is it cow flatulence, jets, data centers with AI in that are causing these problems, and get a cause and effect and have a real preventative plan so that we're not in this situation as often as we are today.
So you're saying let's get at the root cause of these storms. John, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, what's really scary to me is the severity of these storms are escalating. They're getting more and more powerful, yet a lot of the companies that have data recovery plans are more traditional, I think, which is a root of the story. So we have this combination of climate change intensifying, the technology perhaps not keeping pace or not as up to date as it was before. And I'm wondering, I'll throw this out to all y'all. I think Mark mentioned it, like the element of AI or even something like digital twin, something that could probably help in terms of data recovery going forward, because this is going to get worse, I'm afraid, so in Florida and other states.
So I'm not one of those people who say we can't stop climate change. But I have become one of those people that say it's probably taking us 150 years of industrial pollution to get into this mess. And it's going to take us probably at least half of that or longer to get out of that mess. So while doing something to reverse the effects of climate change overall is worthy, and we absolutely have to make it a priority as the human race, and we need our political leaders to find the will to do what needs to be done. That's a whole separate thing. Specifically on how we can prepare better for disaster recovery in terms of IT, I think is another piece of this puzzle. I'm always reminded back, I was in the data center business in the late 90s, .com days. We helped take a company, an ASP that operated data centers and managed infrastructure. And what always freaked me out is, back then we had tape backup. And a lot of the tape backups would, those machines with the robotic arms that would move. And, we could restore you from backup in one day, half a day, an hour, 2 hours. It was all nonsense. When push came to shove and you actually had to do a big time restore from backup, you found out just how fragile and crappy that restore from backup worked. And so I don't know if we've ever really gotten disaster recovery right, even before these latest effects of climate change. And so now it's only worse with what we have. The other thing is, when we're looking to build data centers that run off the 3 Mile Island, I don't know, Mark, if you were on our show when we discussed this, right? Microsoft just contracted to take all the output of what used to be 3 Mile Island. Now they've given it a Orwellian truth kind of new name. But, when we're building data centers in extreme locations to take advantage of temperature or water or power output or what have you, and you combine that with, the volatile climate that we have, something's got to give. We've got to be a lot smarter about what our disaster recovery plans are, how realistic they are, and then how we do them, right? How we implement them. And so, I think it's time to get real about disaster recovery is my kind of thought on this.
What terrifies me, though, is the prospect of somebody winning the election who doesn't believe in climate change and dismantling segments or elements of the government, which I think is a possibility. That to me is more scary as the storms themselves. But I won't go too political, but I do think we should mention that.
I agree with you. I mean, and that's only one of the scary things around this election.
Yeah,
but right. I mean that's I think that's number one. If you have an administration, an official policy that climate change is not real, that climate change is not, majority man-made, how can we ever hope to deal with the root causes that Ann and Mark are talking about here, as well as, getting the political will and national kind of direction on what disaster recovery should look like? How can we successfully do disaster recovery going forward? And, yes, let's, I don't even want to get too political either, but yeah.
I know.
The fact that, you're talking about the U.S. economy and the U.S. government being helmed by an administration that may not believe that climate change is real just takes this to a whole different level. Let me ask you this, though. One of the things that I think the disaster recovery teams have kind of bet the farm on is the idea of redundancy, decentralization, the ability to, have data spread across multiple data centers and geographies. And, the idea of, hey, if this node goes down, we have enough redundancy in our system to make up for it. It's inexpensive. It definitely adds a layer of expense to your IT planning. But given the realities of climate change today and these storms, should every company be doing that?
Everybody that wants to handle disruption in operations well wants to do that. But, it's real easy to say, yeah, I want to do that while we see hurricanes going through. And it's really hard to do it when earnings are coming up and you're like, triple redundancy at Amazon is even more than triple the cost. And so, it's like anything else in life is, you could have a plan for that. I think data is one of those things that even in the thing that's more concerning is people that are non-technical and understand that they think they have backups. Well, there's a lot of people that in this story, they have backups, but they have them in a room, in a locked closet next to the data center where the live data is. And maybe they have it on a server somewhere offsite. But yeah, it's redundancy is expensive, and you tend to be overly cautious when it's brought to light and underly cautious when you have other things front of mind.
Yeah. Hey, I'm sorry. I might have dropped there for a second. Do you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was climate change was hurting the internet for a little while, Alan.
Yeah, well, I just can't get away from those Florida connections. But yeah, I mean, this is a risk management equation to me, right? Yes, the cost of redundancy and decentralization can be substantial. What is the risk of a disaster, taking down your IT infrastructure for a period of time? And I think, when we get right to the heart of it, I think that's the nitty-gritty of it.
Well, and what is the risk of depending on another organization to do it for you? The hosts that I have recommended for WordPress sites for a very long time is WP Engine. They got into a giant spat with Matt Mullenweg and with the WP Foundation that's now being litigated. And, I found out, not through WP Engine, who I've sent a fair amount of business to, I found out through just reading the tech news that there's litigation and they're no longer going to allow WP Engine to update certain plugins and they're freezing features. So as somebody who doesn't have expertise in security and has depended on those daily backups for WP Engine, it just sort of reminds you you're vulnerable if you're depending. I mean, we always have local backups, but still, I now can't update my site because of a spat between two powerful people. It's just sort of, it's sort of eye-opening how you have to be careful not only how you handle your IT, but you also have to be careful who you trust.
Well, and that's always the case in IT, right? And just full disclosure, we used to be a WP Engine customer. We left a couple of years ago not because of this spat with the WP, with the WordPress folks, but it was exactly over backups and their technical response, because we were growing to the point where we really needed a little bit more and we weren't getting it there. So, but in any event, look, this is a real problem and it's not going away, right? We're not going to solve climate change, not here on Techstrong Gang anyway. And this is what we're dealing with. So some good articles in the notes for us to check out. But let me just say this. Obviously, the health and safety of humans is probably more important than the redundancy or your ability to restore your IT infrastructure. And with the storm bearing down on, central West Florida, saving your life is job one. And then we'll save the backup data later. I think that's my best advice I could give you. Let's take a break here on Techstrong Gang. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about some Nobel Prize winners. That's something we talk about a lot on the gang. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Welcome back to Techstrong Gang. I'm John Swartz in California. And yesterday, or actually Tuesday morning, we had a really monumental event. Researchers Jeffrey Hinton and John Hopfield, whose work on machine learning led to the development of things like ChatGPT and other AI products, they were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics on Tuesday. Their work was instrumental, according to the Nobel Committee of Physics, in laying the cornerstones for what we experience today as artificial intelligence. Now, what I found particularly interesting and kind of draw comparisons to was Mr. Hinton, who's a professor at the University of Toronto and left Google last year after 10 years with the company because he's afraid of what AI can do. So the very award he was getting was for a technology that he's warning us about. And it reminded me of Oppenheimer. In a sense, someone who knows the technology as well as anyone telling us that we need to be careful how we use it. And in a sense, also, I talked to a couple of people in the last few days about this, and they not only made that comparison, but they also were looking at this idea that as we kind of move into the future and as things start jumping and leaping with AI, that makes it all the more crucial that we think about the long-term implications. And like in the case of, like, say, an Iron Man, he's got the assistant speaking into his ear, telling him the consequences of what he's going to do. And I think that's what Mr. Hinton is trying to do for the rest of us. So again, history and the godfather of AI is kind of, in a sense, being compared to the father of the atom bomb on multiple tracks.
Wow. Yeah. I thought what was really cool, I didn't realize that their research was actually inspired by the brain structure. And that was sort of what led to the advancements that they made in AI technology. And I think on a positive note, that the committee also focused on, the impact of the discoveries and how it's made our machine learning system so powerful. So it wasn't all doom and gloom. There were positive notes to it, but I think that's just sort of how it goes with AI. There's always sort of a caveat and a warning, because we're all still dipping our toes.
And the thing that's really interesting about it is that both of these guys have created these research in neural networks. And actually, Hopfield was a contemporary of Richard Feynman, who won the physics Nobel Prize for physics, I think in 65-ish.
Yeah.
So, he's sort of a legacy, but their discoveries of what they did were really interesting. Like Hopfield our last segment, we talked about data. The key thing about his contribution was it takes noisy data and puts order into it. So it identifies patterns to reconstruct images and such. So
is noisy shorthand for unstructured?
It could be unstructured, but it's mainly means that there's probably more holes in the data, and it fills it in using statistical analysis to predict and fill it in.
I just want to make sure we're clear here for our audience. So there's two Nobel prizes that were given out that are AI related, or maybe there's more. One, as we mentioned, is AI pioneer Geoffrey Hinton, who won the physics prize, right? And that was with John Hopfield. But there was a second Nobel Prize in chemistry awarded today, and that went to Google DeepMind scientists John Jumper and David Baker. And they won it for using AI to crack the code on almost all proteins, which, protein and protein folding, and I mean, it's a key to life, right? And using AI on protein structure and cracking the code on that is, again, this is a great use of AI, actually, if you ask me, right? This is the kind of stuff where AI, it can change our lives in terms of, so many diseases, whether we're talking about Alzheimer's or MS or so forth, how our bodies produce proteins, and a little DNA off here and there when you got the wrong protein structure, and catastrophe. So that's it. Yeah. So, for all the time I sit here and badmouth AI and poo-poo it, these are amazing accomplishments, right, that are worthy. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Actually, there was a third scientist, so it was split in half. You're right about that. But Demis Hassabis, who is the founder of DeepMind, and John Jumper got half of it, along with David Baker, who got the other half. And what they did was, it's sort of cool, because I did a little bit of of work. It looks like the Google side and the DeepMind folks created the models that do protein folding analysis, and then David Baker took those tools and made some design, I guess, leaps forward. But the essence of protein folding in this context is, as we are with so much of science, we think that probably a lot of disease is caused by a failure in protein folding, and this allows you to simulate and design proteins that and I'm really probably butchering this because I'm a very simple-minded guy. It's very simply fixing the way proteins work so that we can prevent disease. So it's a huge impact versus the AI that is creating deep fakes and writing stories and doing all sorts of other nonsense. This is the kind of stuff why I'm interested in the long-term AI prospects.
Absolutely. What a great use of the technology. Look, there's more Nobel Prizes to be awarded. I don't know if they'll be AI related, but certainly a lot going on. John, anything else before we close out this one?
Actually, I think you're actually going to see the influence of AI, not just in these types of awards, but eventually in entertainment-related awards, writing awards. I think this is just the beginning of AI contributing to heightened creativity in a certain sense and heightened discovery.
I mean, if you remember Everything All at Once, I forget how to say it. Everything
Everywhere all at once.
That's the rocks in that section, and they won the Academy Award, were AI generated by Runway ML. And now I had written last year, I'm pretty sure that it won't be too long before we'll see a Academy Award won by AI tools and production.
If Milli Vanilli can
maybe
win a
special effect.
You know it's true, Anne.
Talk about
it was taken away later.
Fake music and fake news. Anyway.
Well, I'll tell you something. Look, will we see AI as Times Person of the Year? Is it right to still call it Person of the Year? Is it Times Intelligence of the Year? Is it,
That's inevitable. Yeah.
Instead of people using AI to win the Nobel, is it Google's AI that wins the Nobel for curing some disease or something,
what's going to happen eventually? Maybe there'll be a National Book Award that's won by a name, but it turns out it was written by AI, just like Anonymous. It could happen.
Yeah. I think, look, we are in many ways in uncharted waters here, right? And we'll have to see where that goes. All right, let's take a break here on this. And we're going to come back, and I'm going to set us up for our Qualys QSC interview. You're watching Techstrong, gang.
I'm Bonnie Schneider, sustainability contributor to the Techstrong Group. I'm excited to introduce you to a groundbreaking new initiative from Techstrong Research, the Sustainability Pulse Meter. The Pulse Meter offers valuable insights into how environmental responsibility factors into tech purchasing decisions for key players in the industry. Position your company as a leader in the industry and differentiate from your competitors with the Sustainability Pulse Meter, offered exclusively from Techstrong Research.
Hey, everyone. All right, back here on Techstrong, gang. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I am out in San Diego this week for the Qualys QSC event. And our next segment, I actually am going to be on the QSC floor at our Techstrong TV booth. And I will be talking with Marouche Akhtari and Naeem Islam around the big news here at Qualys QSC, where Qualys is announcing what they term the ROC, R-O-C. The ROC, not Dwayne Johnson or anything like that, but ROC stands for Risk Operations Center. And when you think about it, we are, of course, already have NOCs and SOCs, right? Network Operations Centers, Security Operations Center. Do we need another operations center? Should ROC be part of SOC, or have we gotten to the point where ROC is a standalone OC? And we're going to talk to our friends at Qualys about it. And here's that interview now. Hey, everyone, it's Alan Schimmel. We're here in San Diego at the Qualys QSC event, and I'm excited to be here. This is probably my, 7th or 8th QSC event in the Americas over the years. It's always a great event for learning about security and seeing what's new in the security space. For those who aren't familiar, we're going to jump into what Qualys QSC is and what some of the big news coming out here today is. If you've been following along, we've been streaming live from QSC since yesterday, and we'll continue today following the Techstrong gang with our live broadcasts from here in San Diego. But for now, I want to introduce you our two guests for this special segment on Techstrong gang. I'm going to start to my far right and introduce you to Naeem Islam. Naeem, I hope I got that name right.
Yes, you did.
I went with the easy one first, but I can get a little confidence. Naeem, you're product manager for cloud security.
That's correct. Yeah. So I've been at Qualys for about a couple of years. Came as a part of an acquisition in AI, and which we've integrated into our total cloud security product. And very happy to be here.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk more about AI, and we have been talking about AI. Obviously, everyone talks about AI. Well, way more than we want even. But today we're going to talk about enterprise TruRisk management. And if we're going to talk about that, this gentleman is the guy to have here with us. It's Mahesh Ekhtari.
Yep. Thank you so much.
All right?
Yeah.
Mahesh, how are you? So talk to us a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. I've been in the cybersecurity industry for the last 20 plus years. Fairly new at Qualys. I'm leading the launch of our TruRisk management platform, enterprise TruRisk management. And this is really taking the risk management strategy to the next level for Qualys. Right? And I can certainly go into the details of what we really mean by a risk operations center. But I'm Mahesh Ekhtari. I'm VP of Product Management here, managing the Enterprise TruRisk Management Office.
Very good. And we are going to jump into that. Before I do, though, I realize, our audience, I think most of our audience knows who Qualys is, right? Qualys has been around. My background is security as well. I've been in security almost 30 years. There was a time where one of the companies I co-founded in the vulnerability management space, we were a big Qualys competitor early 2002, 2003. Over the years, I became very good friends with Philippe. And then I've been, covering Qualys since I started this company 10 plus years ago. The QSC has, for a long time, been Qualys's a platform to announce new products, give their thoughts on where the direction of the security industry is, but most importantly, also to get some FaceTime one-on-one time with customers, and one-on-many time too, right?
Correct.
I know this is the QSC for the Americas, but you guys do one usually in India or in Asia back, and one in Europe
as well. Yeah, it's a global thing. It's a series that we have, and it's our way to two things, as you said: announce new products, tell the industry where the company is headed, but also connect with customers. And so we also have advisory board meetings that we do, strategic product partners. That's another thing to remember, that we also have a very strong partner program, and we're actually in the partner pavilion right now. So
yes,
this is very important for Qualys' success. But it's an opportunity for us to bring everyone together and then really interact with them, meet with them, and really we do training and have many one-on-one sessions with customers. So it's a two-way interchange. It's never one way, but it is the one in the Americas is probably the largest. It's a great event.
Yeah, I was recently at another user conference from other fairly public company, security and DevOps space, And it was I was talking to their CEO, and he said something very interesting to me. He said the customer interaction that take place at these conferences fuel product direction and company strategy for the next year, because this, as much as you're giving them what you're doing, they're telling you what they need done. And so that two-way information sharing is, as I think, really the kind of the dirty little secret, if you will, about these kinds of conferences. You learn as much as you give here.
Yeah, I think that's important because, we're a customer-first company. So learning what the customer needs, particularly getting as broad a view of that as possible, is pretty critical to our success. So that's I couldn't agree with you more.
Absolutely. So let's turn, though, to the big news, though, and the big story in terms of product coming out of this year's QSC Americas is the debut of the Risk Operations Center as part of Enterprise TruRisk Management. There are a lot of words in there, but how would you describe exactly what this is?
Yeah. So, let me set the background first. Tool sprawl in security industry is real, right? And there's a reason for that. Roll back the time a decade ago, 2 decades ago, and infrastructure was all that organizations had to manage, scan and patch. Then came around the software that was deployed on that infrastructure, right? And those came with vulnerabilities as well. Now with the digital transformation and everything moving up into the cloud, what is happening is modern cloud architectures are bringing to life new digital assets that also need to be managed and secured. These assets can range from anything starting from, container workloads, identities, and dozens of new things that show up in the, cloud space. Now, security industry has responded graciously by creating a specialized tooling to secure every single digital asset type, right?
We like to think so anyway, right?
There's an identity security solution. There's a container security solution, right? There's an AI security solution. Now, it is important to have these offerings. However, when you really look at it, are they working in unison? That is what is really challenging for many of organizations. Risk management strategies are oftentimes fragmented. I would like to really draw an analogy with a SOC, Security Operations Center, which is a pretty well understood concept in an organization. What it does is it indeed takes threat incident data, right, events from multiple different tools for the purpose of aggregation, correlation, enrichment to really figure out a coordinated incident response plan. Similar strategy does not exist today in the proactive risk management side. And that is indeed what a risk operations center is. Our strategy with the launch of Enterprise TruRisk Management offering is to really provide that, I would say, cybersecurity operating system that really focuses on risk reduction programs, collecting security posture management information from the specialized tools that we discussed earlier, bringing it all into the same risk plane so that you can normalize them, enrich them, and really create a coordinated risk response as opposed to threat response. We are really looking at the proactive side of things so that your vulnerabilities and misconfigurations don't get exploited in the first place. That is what the concept of a risk operations center really is.
And now it's risk operation in the cloud, but risk doesn't exist only in the cloud, right? And so I'm imagining you're pulling data in from the agents on endpoints, threat intel, and all kind of the traditional things. So I'm of two minds of this stuff, right? And as I mentioned, I've been in security a long time. I think one of the problems that security in general has suffered from is that for a very long time, especially when I first got involved in security 30 years ago, security was not always part of IT, right? It was separate. It was oftentimes part of risk, and risk management was not an IT function. Risk management, a lot of times, came out of the CFO's line, right? And so there was this unnatural silo, unnatural wall between security, IT, risk, and IT. And then what happened, we realized that security had to be, it was too close to IT. It had to be part of IT. And so all of a sudden, the rise of the CISO. And the CISO many times has their own seat at the exec table. In other organizations, the CISO used to report to a CFO, now started reporting to the CIO. And in some organizations, the CIO and CISO role merged, like into the same person, right? When we went that path, though, we bifurcated security from risk. Okay, security, you can go be part of IT, but risk, that's still a financial decision. And so I'm wondering if what we're seeing now is the other shoe dropping, saying, hey, you know what? Risk is bound to IT as well. You may make financial considerations in terms of managing your risk, but the information that you need to make those decisions live in the IT, live in the cloud operations center, in your SOC, in your NOC, right? And that really what this is, right? Are we seeing risk now move to the IT side of the house?
Yeah, we wouldn't have to talk about risk if organizations were able to patch every vulnerability, fix every misconfiguration, right? We wouldn't have to talk about it. The reality on the ground is our customers have to deal with 50 million, 100 million findings, right? And there's just no humanly possible way to fix them all. And now you have to really have that risk dialogue to understand what is the meaningful or impact of these vulnerabilities and misconfigurations in my organization. So security data is one thing, but when you process that security data, it has to be contextualized for your organization, right? In terms of what is the impact of a loss, should I incur one? And that is where risk management strategies sort of blend into the security response that organizations often derive, right? You're absolutely right. These functions have sort of shifted between multiple different teams in an organization. But with a risk operations center, what we envision is supporting three different functions through a single platform. The CTEM, continuous threat exposure management, the CRQ, the cyber risk quantification. Because what do you do with risk? You either eliminate the risk, you accept the risk that I'm okay with this risk, or you actually transfer the risk, which is buying cyber insurance. So having this comprehensive view of what that risk means from a financial impact to my organizations is really important, and that is where the cyber risk quantification comes in. And last but not the least is you really want to have an automated compliance platform that really allows you to identify auditory or regulatory risks to the business as well. So these are the three key pillars of a risk operations center. And a single platform like Enterprise TruRisk Management is going to enable organizations to derive these insights from a unified manner.
Let me add a couple of things to that. He's actually right. So it's a complex situation that I think we have this whole organization now involved in risk. It used to be siloed. You had this silo of finance looking at risk as a purely business thing. And then you have IT that had an operational thing to fix. With ROC, everything is coming together where we have a tool that can address many different issues. But with major breaches occurring in so many organizations, everyone in the organization is now part of the security team, if you will. If you look at it, we have this notion of DevSecOps now. The developers are now responsible. Finance is responsible. Legal is responsible. There is a security team, but everyone is part of the solution.
Security is everyone's responsibility.
It wasn't that way until we had these large breaches and everything was all hell was breaking loose, if you will. So I think this is our attempt to bring it together, to put some structure in the madness and giving an organization an opportunity to think through how they can address these issues systematically throughout the organization and actually have something for every stakeholder. So it's a different view that I think we've created here.
So I will tell you that this is why I started DevOps.com about 10 years ago, is I recognized that for security to be successful, we had to get the developers thinking security. We had to get the ops teams thinking security and test teams And even, yes, the HR and the sales and the business teams.
No, I think
Everybody has to.
and then with the cloud, and agile development, because everything is all API driven. There's no physical stuff it's all really, really fast.
Yes.
And so the other thing that's not on your side is time. So you don't have time to think, you don't have time to do anything. In fact, everyone is going at lightning speed. There's chaos in the organization. And there's this opportunity, if you will, for companies like us to help put some method in the madness. But I think it's all very agile, the whole process. And I wonder in some sense, I'm not a finance guy, but the entire organization with all these tools have become very agile. And things are going really fast. And you have to have some automated way to get your arms around the risk in real time, if you will.
Yeah. Which to me screams AI. So let me throw that back at you. How big a role does AI play in the ROC, TruRisk formula?
It is really foundational because at the end of the day, what we are really looking at is aggregating risk signals from multiple different diverse tools. Aggregation is just the baselining. However, what you really need to do is correlate that data with threat intelligence. How are these vulnerabilities and misconfigurations being exploited out there in the wild? Right? Are there threat actors who have actually weaponized these vulnerabilities? Using this information allows organizations to really surface the most meaningful risk that their teams, limited number of resources that they have, can actually focus on today. Finally, the business context that we talked about is really unique to every organization. You don't have a security tool that can provide you with that data set, right? So every organization has their own way of organizing the structure, figuring out which business units these applications, assets belong to, and really overlay this contextual data on top of the raw security data that we pull in from multiple different tools. So AI plays an instrumental role in stitching all of these together, because when you're really looking at millions and millions of findings and misconfigurations that need to be remediated, there is, again, no humanly possible way to analyze them all. You really need to look into the AI to have it provide you recommendations of, here is a plan of action that would potentially reduce your risk from here to here. That's what Risk Operations Center does.
Absolutely. Hey, we're about out of time. You've been talking about this yesterday. We'll continue talking about it today. I do want to emphasize, though, this product is available now. This isn't pie in the sky. It's in GA. If you go to Qualys.com, you can find out all about it. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on Techstrong Gang today, and enjoy the rest of QSC. It's been a great show.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed our Techstrong Gang show today. We are going to take a break. We'll be streaming live the rest of the day, or following in about an hour or so, here from San Diego's Qualys' QSC Day 2 coverage. But for now, this is Alan Schimmel for Techstrong. Have a great day, everyone. All right. So I got to tell you, I'm having a ton of fun out here at Qualys' QSC. They always put on a good event. I will mention, though, Mike Vizard's not here, but I did get to go to the Padres-Dodgers game last night while I was out here as well. And that was a great game, 6-5. Padres win, and there wasn't a seat empty in that stadium. It was crazy. But look, Qualys' big news is the birth of the ROC, if you will. And I don't know if any of you want to chime in on what you think about it, or if do we need yet another operations center here? Is a ROC part of the SOC mission? I'm not 100% sure myself, but I know better than to call what Qualys does crazy, because I remember calling what they did crazy back in 2002 and 2003, thinking that they were going to store other people's vulnerability data up not on-prem. That we didn't call it a cloud then, but on someone else's servers. With the Qualys Operations Center, if you will, or the Qualys network. So I don't know, Mark and John, any thoughts on ROCs?
So I have, maybe I'm that old guy saying, get off my lawn. But back in the 90s, when I worked for an ISP and I ran the NOC was under me. I feel like there was always a benefit for having one point of contact, whether it was power outage in the building or network outage in our network. So I think having security within the NOC framework, and I use NOC generically. Back then it was network, but let's just say I don't know what was the IROC, which was a Camaro in 1983 to me.
I remember the IROC.
Yeah, but I really think having a digital operations center that is well integrated across your network, all of your business had and we have big call centers. I ran about 9 call centers in 9 different states, and we really benefited not just from the network, but having outages. Phoenix got a dust storm and it blocked all the microwave digital transmission. So all those people went offline, or there was a floods in Texas and it took out the power or whatever. I think having security as an equal footing with any kind of outage is good, but from a practical operations state, and right now I will preface that with I cause security problems. I don't fix them anymore. So I'm speaking a little out of turn, but I do think having that integrated into your overall IT operations center is important. I don't know if standalone always scares me, because silos coming from the DevOps world are really not a good thing in my experience.
Good stuff. And John, any thoughts, or we'll move on? Going once, twice, 3 times. And you sure you were about to say something?
Well, I would say he brought up Texas. So, of course, as a Texan, I have to talk about Texas because that's what we do. It was just announced in the news that we are apparently not too good to join the national grid any longer. The Department of Energy has a $360 million project basically to connect us to the U.S. grid, as we don't want a redo of Snowpocalypse. It was a little embarrassing for us.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised they're taking the federal money, but that's a whole nother story. Anyway, but look, maybe this puts risk management on par with security and operations and some other stuff. We'll see. Anyway, hey, that's going to call a wrap on this day's Techstrong Gang. We hope you enjoy your Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow with the weekend wrap, or the Friday, heading to the weekend wrap-up show. Until then, John and Mark, thanks for joining us. Thank you out there for watching us. From San Diego, this is Alan Schemmel for Techstrong Gang. We're out.